Hello and welcome to another one of my thoughts videos. In this one I want to look at a concept of being observant. Now in the past I have harped on a little bit about knowledge, understanding, wisdom and applying honesty. Knowledge being pure information, understanding makes sense of that knowledge, and wisdom is the application of that understanding of the knowledge. And you must be brutally honest with yourself. When you're wrong, admit you're wrong, because you learn something from that. And when you're right, file it away as being right. Now in the past, science was very much an observing thing. I think science, for all our gadgets that we have today, we're not actually making much advancement really. When you compare monumental discoveries of the past, the flying a rocket to Mars is not actually much. It's only applying a whole bunch of discoveries and things from the past and applying them today. Having a cell phone is really just a very good refinement of concepts that have been around for a century. It's all combining them and putting them together. There were a few monumental things like discovering LEDs and things like that, which have made a big impact on the gadgets that we have. But we haven't really made that many major discoveries recently, like things as major as flight and the internal combustion engine and jet engines and things like that. Mostly what we're doing today is refining things and making gadgets that can be sold. The basics of life still remain the same. Now I believe that science, for all its appearance of what it is not actually doing so well. In Wikipedia, which is a very biased sort of platform, I only believe 50 to 60% of it. The rest is very biased opinion. Wikipedia is an opinion platform, really. It's not necessarily a truth platform, but you can glean a lot of information from it. Now they have coined phrases these days of, you've got science, which is always science, and they've invented words like pseudoscience, faux science, and non-science. I did look up in Wikipedia and found 6 words like that, and of varying degrees of what this maybe science, maybe not science is, which is a great indicator of how far we have strayed. Things like the flat earth, for example. If you believe in flat earth, that's fine, I don't. They say it's pseudoscience or non-science or whatever. I would say it's science, but the conclusions that one would arrive at, many people refuse to accept them, that's all. In the past, science was always observation, recognizing some patterns that were replicatable and then testable by various different experiments and things to prove a hypothesis or theory. Things like gravity. Gravity exists. Take an apple, drop it. You do it every time, it drops. And so there is a consistent pattern that you observe and say, hey, there's something, and we'll call it gravity, that makes an apple fall. So what the actual gravity is, we're still grappling with and still don't know what it is. We know it exists and we've given it a name, but we don't know what it is. And there are many things like that. Now, in the medical world in particular, there is a problem that money comes into it. In any of these sciences, money is destroying it. Unfortunately, these sciences have been relegated to the universities. Now, education and the whole education system is just a filter system to find out who are the most compliant robots. Those that aren't compliant get sloughed off on the side, and those that succeed the best are those that are most compliant with the system. So by the time you get to a university funded by multinational corporations to investigate things that the multinational corporation is interested in, you have a bunch of robots. Sorry, all you professors in universities, but you have been selected as the most compliant people that will do as you're asked. So that means that you're not necessarily going to be very creative and lateral thinking in your investigation. Many of the scientific discoveries of the past were due to cross-disciplinary, in other words, there were no separate disciplines. There were people who said, hey, that star up there, hey, this rock down here, hey, this tree over here, combined and said, oh, look what happens. Nowadays, everything's compartmentalized into little areas and they don't tend to mix. This is how virology and exosomology stay separate when in actual fact they're the same thing. Now, this is where I think the medical system has become shamanistic again. They've gone full circle from being shamanist in the tribal situation to a multinational shamanistic situation. There are many scientific and true things that shamans work with. But then at some stage, to make a living, they will then perpetrate lies, twist things and fool people. And that is exactly what the medical and scientific areas are doing. They're not being honest about their observations. In fact, often they're not observing. And what they do observe, they will twist, ignore and shoehorn into whatever financial benefit they are going after. I have a nephew who works for a company. He studied microbiology or some area like that, and with the aim of cancer research. He got a job, and last time I spoke to him, was very disappointed because he was having to do experiments that he didn't think much of. He had to meet deadlines, and so there was great pressure on him to fudge the data and to basically lie so that his corporation would be satisfied with the work that he did, because he was working towards a corporate goal rather than actual true science of discovering things by curiosity and finding new things out. Now, I've been watching some videos of pioneer medical people, for example, in biology and genetics. The geneticists are now saying genetics do not define us, which I already was thinking that anyhow, but at least they're starting to admit it. And it seems that the medical industry, some of them are starting to say in their old age that the medical field has basically reached a stagnation point where something major has to happen. Now, historically, medicine has always been an attempt to find a physical, mechanical, chemical process without considering the invisible, the spiritual, or the out there thing. They're now being forced to reconsider. It seems that the whole scientific field is starting to deny the science itself, because the more that they are forced to be honest and observe, the more that they're being forced into believing a out there beyond the physical world, and they don't like that and don't want it. So it's a big difficulty for them. There's going to be a time of reckoning. Now, the allopathic medicine that's drugs and chemicals, basically founded by, is it the Rockefellers and all those corporations, have milked the whole thing just about as far as they can go, and there are now branches of alternative people who are investigating have realized that it's not working, that it's a business that is founded on keeping people ill so that you can treat their symptoms but never find and cure the cause. Now, these alternative people are now starting to look for causes and trying to get rid of the causes. And it's quite impressive how simple some of these things are. And it's also very tragic to see how poorly we have been doing for at least the last 100 years. Now, there are also a lot of people making mistakes and concluding incorrectly, but as I go back to knowledge, understanding, wisdom with brutal truth, well, some are not doing that even in the alternative areas, but there are a lot of curious people who are making very good inroads. Now, just after the Great Alignment and the great solar maximum, with all that moving of the planet and everything that I was sensing and feeling, several weeks after it started calming down, say halfway through September, I'm considering maybe it was a consequence of all of that stuff. I happened to get a very, very nasty rash. Maybe I can show some pictures here. I should have been hospitalized, but I decided that it wasn't serious enough or life-threatening enough to go to hospital, even though there were a number of people who was insisting that I did. But I knew from my past experience of dermatology and dermatologists that I have consulted through the years that they don't know much. Sorry all you dermatologists, but there we are. So I decided to grit it through, and it's been, 1.5, 2 months, and I'm basically sound again. But wow, what a really good, awful, but excellent experience to learn so much, because it gave me the opportunity to observe and to start gathering knowledge, understanding it, to apply some wisdom. At least now I'm testing that wisdom, or lack thereof it might be, as far as dermatology goes, skin and detoxification. There are many, I think, what are classified as illnesses these days, which are not actually illnesses. They are natural processes that we don't understand, that we do not cooperate with. In fact, the medical industry fights against and makes the situation worse. One of those things that we do not understand the gravity of is toxicity, and how our body manages to deal with toxicity, or toxins, with these poisons, because we live in a toxic world. We even generate toxins and things, and how our body deals with that, I don't think they're very interested in even investigating, because it doesn't make them money. If you can cure yourself, it's not going to make money. And so it's a difficult thing of how do you research something when it won't be funded because it's going to make the industry lose money. One example of this is the common cold. Why have we never been able to find a cure for the common cold? For a start, the multinationals without a heart, not the people that work in it, but the corporation itself, is not interested in finding a cure for it. They want to sell you symptom management chemicals. So, because that's good for their business model. That's what corporations exist for, is making money. So they're not interested in curing the common cold. They're not interested in finding out what is the common cold. Some of the alternative people now, and I agree with them, is that the common cold is actually a combination of detoxification methods that the body employs. Depending on the toxins or the state that you're trying to deal with, will dictate what symptoms you're going to have. Is it going to be an itchy throat, a sore throat, a runny nose, a head cold, or sneezes, or whatever? It depends on what mechanisms or combination of them your body is using to eliminate and clean itself, which it's very good at doing, and we have to put up with it because that's just part of the natural processes. It's actually a good thing. A high temperature, a temperature as such, is a good thing. A high temperature is not a good thing. So the temperature that you have is designed to kill off bacteria that are not necessary or bad, and also to stimulate systems in the body to create more white blood cells and all sorts of things with that rise in temperature. For example, pneumonia is actually pneumococcus, I think the name of the bacteria. Everybody always has the pneumonia bacteria in your lungs because they're there to clean up all the dead cells that are in your lungs. Under normal conditions, it's no problem. They just go about their business and you don't even know they're there doing their job. But when you get really out of balance and you have a trauma to your lungs that creates a lot of dead cells in your lungs, then those pneumonia cells will multiply to the point where now you have a full-blown pneumonia. And the temperatures you're going to get are trying to control the number of them, but they're replicating because there's heaps of food, and if you don't bring the whole system under control, well, you can die from it. But it is actually a natural process. And if we're in a really good state, which almost nobody ever is, we wouldn't have any problem at all. But we do need to detox, and we do need to eliminate things. We do need to control bacteria, but we do need bacteria and all sorts of things like that. Now, this rash I had, I came out in big blisters and sore, and my skin sloughed off and everything. It was really tragic. I was, as I say, hospitalization material, but after a couple of weeks, the blisters started going down, and then I got lots of scabs and really itchy and all that sort of things. And I have learnt so much by observing. I'm now stimulated to go and check on the internet as much information, much knowledge as I can gain from the dermatological field to try and understand what the field understands thus far, to find out how deficient they are, because in my experience they've been very deficient. I've had skin cancers, melanomas, 3 of them, and been to dermatology and blah blah blah. I've always had acne and eczema as a kid and all that, so my skin is a type that is a difficult one to control. Now I'm excited after having this rash, because I've now identified and observed a whole bunch of patterns which I think really merit a lot of investigation. So maybe in the future I can share this information, and as with anything medical and things, it's just the viewer beware. If I say something and recommend something, well, it's up to you to figure out whether I'm actually correct or not, and whether you take the responsibility based on the knowledge, understanding, to apply wisdom in those situations. I have a number of things which I will share shortly, but I'm waiting to get confirmation on my experiments. And a good thing when you're observing is note it down, write it down, date it, put the dates, and accumulate. Now, on one experiment I'm doing now is into my third, nearly fourth year, I suppose, of experimenting, and I've got over 350 pages of notes, which I will hopefully share shortly. And now I'm writing down all of the chronology of what happened during this rash and what I observed. And then think about what's going on here, and then figure out some solutions and stuff like that. But anyway, that's an experience I've had, and I've been talking long enough. So really be observant and be honest. Think, gather knowledge, understand it, apply it, be honest. And the information often comes from observing. So be observant.